Hello guys, welcome to the first ever episode of Cruise Conversations, brought to you by the organisers of Cruise Ship Interiors Expo and Cruise Ship Hospitality Expo. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that's registered. We were aiming for 100 people maybe, and we've got I think more like 600 people. So amazing, really pleased that we can get everyone together for this. The purpose for this Cruise Conversations, as I'm sure you can imagine, events are being cancelled, meetings are being cancelled, the world is working from home or designing from home, and we really feel like we need to keep this community talking, keep people engaged. We've got lots of different ideas that we can do, but this is our first go at Cruise Conversations. So I'll hand over to our panelists, our speakers. I'll let you guys introduce yourself. Ladies first, of course.
Thank you, such a gentleman. Hi everyone, my name is Nguyen, and I lead the Interior Design and Interior Operations Department for Holland America and Seabourn. We are a fleet of 20 ships total, with new build on the way. And my team is responsible for an A to Z process. We do everything from interior design in-house to collaborating with third parties, to awarding bids to contractors, specifications, and design implementation at dry docks. I call my team unicorns because they are diversified in their skills as interior designers and project managers. And I also wear another hat where I design for the staterooms for Holland America new build ships. We do that in-house. I've been in the industry for almost 20 years, and I'm really excited to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Very good.
My name is Petu Kummala. I work for Carnival Cruise Line. I'm the design director there. We have an in-house team, and then we have outside designers as well, which we oversee. We are also involved in new builds and refurbishment when it comes to design. Currently, we have 27 ships at Carnival Cruise Line, and then we are building at the moment in Finland for our biggest ship ever, Mardi Gras, and also are already involved in the designing of the sister ship to Mardi Gras.
Very good.
Hi, I'm Mike Oliver, co-owner with my brother and chairman of Trimline. Just celebrating this year 55 years of being in the industry, and we're predominantly outfitters for more refurbishment.
Very good. Okay, so Trimline, Carnival, Seabourn, some big names here. We're really excited to get going. We've got about 30 minutes to cover as much ground as possible now. We've broken it down into sort of 4 key areas that we want to talk about, and then we'll have a 10-minute Q&A once we've spoken about the topics that we've got down here. Just to say that the questions that we've received from you guys, I mean, there's clearly a pattern of what you guys want to find out, and we've got that down. So we'll try and get through as many of those as we can within 10 minutes. But first of all, I think it's important to kick off with the community aspect to how we've handled the coronavirus, COVID-19. I think that, the cruise interiors community have come together really strong. So our first question is, what have you guys seen from the supplier base that's demonstrated that sort of sense of community, guys? First of all, to Mai.
I think that our design community is incredible. From the day that we all learned of this news, I mean, it literally happened overnight. I feel like there was just automatically a sense of empathy and a sense of what can we do to help. Everything from being in tough situations for our vendors, but holding on to their orders so that we could preserve cash as a cruise line, to offering free services, to offering ideas, to offering to send samples wherever we need them. Everyone just jumped in right away. It's been really encouraging and impressive.
Yeah, and Petu, would you add anything to that? Have you seen anything down in Miami from your supplier base?
No, what Mai was saying, it's been like that. I mean, it started right away, and I think cruise industry, it's a big industry, but it's not that many people involved, so it's kind of like a family. And yeah, I mean, like anything you needed, both ways, like whatever you need help, we can do it, and vice versa. and a lot of messages. We've done a lot of Zoom calls or, these kind of things, and, business wise, but also then social wise too, and keeping talking with each other. And, we have outside designers who we've been talking to, and, they feel the pain. Everybody feels the pain. So that's been really good. And then, like seeing all the messages on the cruise ships, when they do them on the balconies, I mean, stuff like that. It's that part of it has been really, really good.
Yeah, and on the topic then of what suppliers have done to support the cruise line industry, is there anything that you need that you feel you haven't got yet? I mean, is there anything that suppliers can start to do that will put you in a position when we start refurbishing and building ships again? Is there anything you feel that can support you?
I think just being prepared in general is what to do, is to be ready, because once this goes away and we get going, then all of a sudden there's need. So I think everybody, needs to prepare and be ready once the things start to ramp up, and we need things get going in much more bigger way than what they might be going at the moment.
Yeah, and Mai, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, Toby, our guys,
say,
our supply chain's been superb. I mean, they've really done everything to try and help us. We've been having to turn wagons back because we couldn't. We had 5 refits postponed indefinitely, so we had all the gear coming in for 5 major dry dockings. So we've had to turn lorries round, and our supply chain has been superb. They've just said no problem, we'll take it back in, and just stayed communicating with us. They've been great.
Yeah. So Mai, would you add anything to that?
Just that I think as a cruise line, our responsibility is to be ready as soon as guests are ready to be on vacations. And what we need support for our vendors is for them to be ready for whatever we need, because for sure there will be modifications that'll be required, new healthcare protocols, whatever. The quicker everybody is ready and prepared, the better we can start operating again.
Absolutely. And I suppose I'd turn that question to you then, Mike. If we talk about how can the suppliers help the cruise lines, and we say be ready, how do you feel the cruise lines can help the suppliers and the contractors that are facing a really difficult time at the moment? What are some of the things that you would like to see to support you, Mike?
I probably talk for everybody here in the supply chain, to be honest. I mean, number one, it's got to be settling of accounts for the likes of vendors like ourselves, because obviously it flows down through the supply chain. And we've always been renowned for paying people as quickly as we can, but to have those accounts settled now, so we can get that down through, because we have individuals working for us, and obviously we're paying mortgages, and it really is like that. So our message really is to the cruise companies is to release the cash that's owed. And yeah, we understand things are tightening up and things will be tight, but initially we've got to survive this, and the supply chain needs to be there at the end when this is all over. Yeah,
I understand. Any comments? I mean, it is a sense of community, isn't it? We all need to be doing what we can. And everyone is, it seems that every business on the face of the earth is now looking for cash. Everyone's trying to keep the cash where they can. So yeah, it's definitely a good point. We do see things like the social hashtags that you mentioned, Petu, on the side of the ships and that. Have you seen anything else, like any other creativity that's going on from the suppliers or from the cruise lines that you'd like to mention?
Well, one of the things was what I mentioned was this, meetings that you do, like what we are having now. I just had one, I think last Thursday or Friday, with one of the companies who's working on Mardi Gras, and one of them was in Vegas, one of them was in Tennessee, and it's one of our video suppliers, and we just had like a 6 o'clock cocktail hour with them, talking other things. We talk business in meetings and emails, but this was just to kind of like check in. Hey, how's you do? I know, how are you guys doing? We know we're not meeting in person, but trying to just keep things normal in that way. We are also then organizing on business side, where one of the big challenges is like seeing things in person, which you can't, like mock-ups of things what we normally do. But maybe we can talk about that more in detail. But I think these kind of social meetings, and it's been across the board, when we've been and just kind of checking with each other how things are. I think that's just from everybody's mental same.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly that. Just business and personal, just seeing how, checking on everyone, and it's free for these meetings are free. So if you've got suppliers or customers and you want to check in on them, Zoom, GoToWebinar, all these platforms are so easy to use now. And that sort of leads me on to the next point is, whilst we are all working from home, there is, the stability is a really important thing. How to balance having kids at home, working, designing spaces, running a business, Mike. It must be really challenging. So, what do you think this impact is having on you guys designing spaces and working on ships? Mike or
Mai?
Either.
Go ahead, ladies first again.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old at home. So I'm fortunate that they can more or less be kind of on their own. But it certainly is a juggle of wearing a mom hat and a chef hat and a work hat and everything else combined into one environment. But I've always been someone who thrives on being over busy and kind of being in crazy situations. That's probably why I love the cruise industry. You kind of have to be a little bit crazy to love the industry, but it's really challenging, but it's also really wonderful because quite honestly, I haven't really spent as much time with my kids. It's a really busy industry and a really busy job. And every evening I cuddle with my daughter and watch chick flicks with her. I mean, I would never have done that before. So there's definitely wonderful things about it as well. And as far as designing, it's hard. I mean, it's a different environment. You don't have a studio, you don't have your samples with you, but there are ways to work around it. And as creatives, we always work around things because that's just the nature of our abilities. And to have vendors so supportive to send samples and to have, online chats and that kind of thing, it's been really positive.
Mike?
Yeah, for us, it's initially is to navigate through, to use a terrible pun, to get through this period where really our world's just been upside down. I mean, in the 40 years I've been, in my tenure as it were, I've never seen us actually stop trading. Yes, we've been close, but this is actually on the 12th of March, one afternoon we stopped trading. And it's actually a very scary place to be, and I'm sure everybody listening out there is experiencing the same thing. So right now, we're just trying to navigate, stay in touch with our staff and colleagues who have been with us, some of them 40 years plus, try and reassure them as much as we can, look at the government guidelines and policies and work our way through. And at the end of the day, we're going to make sure Trimline is as strong as it can possibly be at the end of this situation.
Yeah. Petu, would you add anything to that?
I think Mike's message, that's true. It's an uncertain time, and you see some people struggle more, some people struggle less, and it's like, it can be worse. I'm just sort of talking from a point of view of working from home and being in a containment, let's say. It's just gotta suck it up, all of us, and we will get through it sooner rather than later when we all do it like that. But yeah, it doesn't mean there's no challenges. There's plenty of them. But now it's time to be strong and go through them.
Yeah. So on the subject then of designing from home, is it that simple? Are you guys still designing the spaces from your houses? Have you got all of the kit there to be able to?
Oh, for sure. At least from before I joined Carnival, I was running my own company and I was working. I had a home office, so I kind of feel similar. But then I'm big on having certain things, when it comes to designing and creating. And when we were moving the stuff from our offices, everybody kind of had a cart or something. So you got monitors and computers and things like this. And I brought some of the pieces here. Let me show you that I have in my office. I have like this big chunk of granite that's just laying there. Then I have this piece of glass beautiful. So I got them here, and like team, when we all kind of sent a picture of our home office, and they were like, "What the hell? Like you took the piece of granite from your office?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I need that stuff." But I think anything that you have
Nice
that
coffee table.
keeps you inspired, whether it's or listening music, whatever you do to get you going. I think that's very important. Like make your space where you work as much comfortable as it can be, and as inspiring as it can be. I mean, I got King of Cool behind me there, which I think there's a reason for it.
Yeah. Mai, would you add
I
anything
think
to
the
that?
reality is the reality is with design, everything, there's so much electronic as well. So if we're pulling design imagery, concepts, if we're even looking at fabrics, there's such great online websites where you go to vendors and you can order samples. So, I mean, in some ways, the world is already set up to help support that in the design community. And really, it's to get into what you're used to and adapt to what your reality is now. But I would say that, yeah, there's hurdles, but it's not impossible to design from home for sure.
Yeah, for
My
sure.
team and I have been doing a lot of that lately.
Yeah, and what would you say in terms of being in a big studio with all of your samples around you, and out in the real world you can get all that inspiration. Being indoors with kids and trying to juggle all those different things, where do you find that inspiration? Petu, for example, what would you do indoors to find that inspiration to design a beautiful restaurant, for example?
Oh well, then the answer is easy. That's what I do. Typically, is like I put some, Steve Ray Vaughan or something playing on real loud, and maybe like we were talking about before, is that maybe if you really are getting creative, get a little GT in your hand or something and just going. In a way that can be, they don't allow you to do that in the office because complain that the music is too loud. I already get that in my office, so here I don't get that. So that kind of stuff. I mean, normally I would go and say, like, for inspiration, I like to travel, and it doesn't have to be travel far. It can be close. You go to see a local motorcycle shop or something, and you can really get something in your brain from there. That's not possible now because they don't allow that. You can still go outside, go bicycling, go walking, things like that. So you can see things, but yeah, it is more just indoors. So then you just gotta do what you do in your space. And to me personally, the music is the big thing, and really kind of drives me to do that. So I don't find it a problem to get inspiration.
Nice. Okay. The next thing then that follows on to that then is, we have got a lot more time on our hands now. If you're meeting to meeting, which I'm sure you guys all are, we've now got a lot more time at home to think about things. What would be the advice you'd give to some of the suppliers out there that have now got a bit more time on their hands to perhaps make tweaks to their products, tweaks to their business? Is there anything that you guys want to see post-COVID from a supplier point of view that's a new offering, for example? Is there anything out there that you feel that it's missing?
I had an idea this morning actually on my run. I thought, if for all those textile mills out there or chemists out there that are looking to treat fabrics, is there something you can innovate where you can make sexy gloves and masks that guests could wear that could be antivirus? I mean, the thought of how many latex gloves and masks and shields are putting in landfills daily is just probably going to be quite astounding. So is there something that could be renewable that still addresses the antivirus for guests to, if we're going to accept that maybe when we go to restaurants now, we all have to wear masks and gloves and our server is going to have to do the same, how do we do that in an aesthetic way that still makes us feel safe? With the gift of time, you can innovate and think of those things. I was thinking actually for contractors, the reality is, dry dock dates might be shorter just because of the pure nature of cash flow issues. And are there things that you can innovate that are pre-made that could help either the crew or the guests or the facilities on board that you can implement in a short amount of time? those are the kind of things that we should be thinking about. And with the gift of time, we can communicate with each other and collaborate because we actually have time to talk to each other. The reality of the cruise industry when it's booming is we might not have time to see most vendors, but now, reach out to us because with the gift of time, we're more open to collaborating and innovating.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and like, someone like Mike, let's say, if you have employees who are still in your payroll and maybe they don't have as much things to do as they normally would, use that time to innovate. How can you supply things better, or like materials? I mean, there's already materials that have like antibacterial qualities, hard surfaces, and otherwise. I mean, I'm sure that kind of stuff becomes more and more. So anything you can develop, and yeah, maybe it's a supply, like a time issue, like Mai said, if the dry dock is shorter, how can you supply things quicker or make the job quicker? It's time to innovate, and like I said, once things get going, then you're ready, and maybe you help us or help everybody by being able to supply quicker or better materials.
Yeah. And Mike, then one point on time and getting back out there. We were speaking yesterday about this. If the demand for the passengers, when things do kick back off, is lower, which might be expected. What are they to do with the rooms that are empty on board some of the ships? Now, we were talking about whether they could do, and you referred to it as, is it ride-on squads?
Ride-on squads, very good, Toby. You were listening, good man.
Good job, Toby.
So we were saying, I'll let you explain it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely spot on. I mean, it's always been a part of our makeup of turnover anyway, and our service is to provide this ability to do ride-on squads. But the problem always is getting cabins, because the cruise companies have been so successful in the last 10 years. They've never got any room to get contractors on. Of course, one thing is real estate on board a ship. So you've got your crew, and obviously crew are very important, and the passengers 2 to 1 and all this sort of ratio. So cabins for contractors are well down the list. But in these times, if the cruise is 2/3 full, you can get 20 guys on board, and it's a very efficient way of working. They're on board, they do their 10-12 hours a day, and you can get through a lot of work in that time. And as you find, the passengers absolutely love it. They end up talking to our guys, and I know a lot of our people are good friends with passengers that they've met in this way. So if the passengers like it, and it's an efficient way of working, then that's got to be a win-win. And it's certainly that type of work. Okay, we're used to doing the very big projects. We know, I'm talking to our clients all over the world, and they're all saying 20, whoops, that's phone a friend time, I think.
That was a weird noise. I don't know what that was, like UFO landing or something. I don't know.
I don't need a phone a friend. I can answer this one.
I didn't know.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a good use of space on ship and good use of time. And obviously, I know the cruise companies want to keep the money down, but I mean, this is not such big money compared with what we're all used to with these revites and everything else. So yeah.
What would you guys say to that? I mean, is that something that you
No,
think?
I mean, it's true. I mean, the ships are basically always fully booked. So anything that you need to do, because you do in service certain things, smaller projects and what you can manage during the cruise. And often the cabin is, getting cabins is a problem. So if it so happens that once the cruising gets back and they don't go fully 100%, that's definitely something to look into, because it's an opportunity that you can do something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think that would also save on costs for the yards and stuff like that. So some of the smaller work, you're saying, would get done on these ride-on squads. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, there are often things, smaller things that you can do during service. You do it when the ship is in port or whatever. But then sometimes the challenge is that there's no cabins for the crew to do that. Just a single only challenge in some cases. So then maybe that challenge is a little easier when we get going again.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
The great thing about
Toby,
ride-on squads is the versatility as well, because dry docks usually happen every 2 to 3 years. So instead of waiting for this long window of opportunity, you have ride-on squads that can be ready within weeks and to go and help maintain the ships. It's a great benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Toby, for us on our side of the fence, obviously, when we get back from all of this, the one thing, bearing in mind, our orders are all postponed right now, and a lot of those refits will be going back into 21, I would imagine. Sometime I've been heard 2022. So any work like that is just going to be really vital to keep the likes of the outfitters going, and also the supply chain to the outfitters. I mean, it's going to be really precious. Any order number that comes through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important then to mention, we've talked about the refurbishment work. I mean, new build, this was the big topic of discussion, especially at our shows. Everyone's talking about how many ships are being built. What are we hearing from your end, guys, from the cruise lines? I mean, we understand the refurbishment work's being postponed, but new build?
Well, I mean, at the moment for us, we're very fortunate. We're building a ship, we're building Mardi Gras in Finland, and the shipyard is still open. We're also designing already the sister ship, but then there are shipyards like in Italy that are completely closed. So if they're closed, nothing will happen. Nothing is happening, obviously, unless they can have their turnkeys doing stuff on their workshops. But if the shipyard is closed for 2 weeks, can they catch it? I don't know. I mean, that remains to be a question. But from our point of view, actually, our new build site at the moment is very busy. So we're fortunate. But of course, that's going to be a challenge when the shipyards are closed, how they come back online and how does this affect their schedule.
And Mike?
Yeah, I think there's a pause for sure with just the reality of the lockdown. But as far as the focus for the brands, it's our newest assets that we want to introduce to our brands as soon as possible. So for sure, new build is a great focus.
Okay, so there'll be hundreds of suppliers listening to this right now, contractors as well, that will be thinking, most of our business, our revenue was made up from refurbishment work. How do we get involved in this new build then? How do we try and get our products, our brand on board these new ships that are being built? So have you got any advice for companies looking to do that?
I don't think that has changed necessarily during this time. You have companies who focus more on refurb, and some people focus on new build, and some do both. I don't think this situation has changed any of the sort of how that works.
I would encourage companies to collaborate. The reality is, let's see where we are in 3 months, because what was the normal, before might have to be completely changed. So this is a time to be vulnerable and reach out to your competitors and say, hey, what do you know? This is what we know. Can we collaborate? Are you finding that over the last 6 months of being in quarantine or however long this is going to take, have you lost some of your normals that we can help fill in those gaps? I think now is the time that we all need to collaborate, even as cruise brands, because we need to have a consistent message, regardless of if we're in competition or not, of making environments where our guests can feel safe. That's the most important thing. As soon as we get guests and we get revenue, then the industry can start moving again. So I think we shouldn't be thinking of it as who's going to be the first to start cruising in a competitive way. We need to just support the industry and get as many people comfortable to cruising as possible in whatever form that is. Yeah, that's for sure.
That's for sure that we're all in this together, all the cruise lines, because it's once the world, let's say, opens, once social gathering is acceptable again, and they lift these travel restrictions and whatnot, then it's for all of us. None of the cruise lines are in a different position, so it's going to be for all of us, and surely everybody is talking together, working together, trying to find solutions how it can be made possible faster than later.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, would you add anything to that?
No, I think the nuances between the two markets are quite different. I think if you're a supplier like a lighting company, then you can supply to refurb, you can supply to the new build market equally as well. As a contractor, it's different because one, you're working for a shipyard, so there's cultural differences there, and the period that you're doing the work is over a long period of time. Refurb, obviously, we can do refits in the Bahamas in 6 days, in Singapore in 10 days, but over new build, obviously, it's stretched out a lot longer. So you just have to think through that, and that sort of process of having men away for a lot longer periods of time and having to rely on others in the process of building a ship.
Yeah. Okay.
The whole process from a supplier point of view is that with new builds, you contact the shipyard if you want to work on a new ship. I mean, it's not so much through the cruise line itself, like it is more on a refurb side. So that's a whole different process that way as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Learn the process. I mean, yeah.
Exactly that. There'll be suppliers that spotted the growth of the cruise industry, months or years ago, and now they're getting to the position where they might have a product, and then they're seeing this. So it leads on to sort of certifications is one thing that I wanted to just talk about. We all know the IMO, we all know the ones that we speak about a lot. But do you think there'll be anything that comes out of this from the supplier's point of view that looks at antimicrobial, antivirus, antibacterial?
For sure.
Absolutely.
I have no doubt about that, whether it's materials or systems. I mean, already now cruise ships are so very controlled from USPH point of view, the health, how, there's hand wash stations and things like that you don't see them in land, or at least not in the scale what we have. So I'm sure there's going to be more things like that, automated faucets, soap dispensers, all that stuff. We already have, like, for example, it wasn't related to this situation, but like Mardi Gras will have the touchless bathroom doors. So when the guests are going to the public bathrooms, they don't have to touch anything, which I think is something that probably just becomes the norm, which is something 5 years from now, everybody just set it as a norm and not a new thing. So I think things like that for sure becomes, industry wide, which will help, guests feel more safe, and just from a point of view of pure facts, that will keep things like this spreading.
Yeah.
I'd say coming from interior design and operations, since my team does design, so we of course want it to be beautiful, but it's also our problem if it doesn't last. Maintenance is going to be a huge thing for all of you vendors out there. If it's furniture or surfaces or fabrics, imagine that the protocols of how we're going to be cleaning our materials is going to be tenfold. So, if a chair is going to be rubbed down with an abrasive material 5 times a day, what is that going to look like for the chair in 3 months? That's definitely something I think we should focus on, is the maintenance aspect to the aesthetics of the products.
That's a very good point. And then also working together, if you supply fabrics, work together with the housekeeping, what materials they will use, what products, cleaning products, how they react together. Like, for example, leather is very difficult if you work, with the bleach type products or something like that. So I think, suppliers who supply the cleaning products and then the materials should work together so the material reacts very well to the cleaning product used, and vice versa, so we don't destroy things. It's a very good point.
Absolutely.
And anything inherently antibacterial is going to be brilliant. I mean, any fabric, there's a chance to innovate there. Any fabrics that don't need treatment that hold their antibacterial properties would be fantastic. And
Sure.
yeah, same with the laminates and anything else. It'd be tricky, but I mean, I'm sure the guys will be on it.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And not to deviate too much, but on the sort of topics of making tweaks to products and trying to innovate on what you've already got, there is a question of what happens to some of the spaces on board the ships that are designed which don't sort of adhere to social distancing. So if you think of a restaurant, for example, once the ship is ready to sail again, how are they going to deal with the restaurants where you're sat close to each other when you're not on the same table? are they likely to retrofit these? Are they going to be, redesigning them? How do you think that will work?
I don't think you can go, because then you'll be sailing with like 25% of the cast or something. I don't think that works that way. But I think that's for everything. It's not only for cruise ships. If you think about, football stadiums, any kind of, concert and social gatherings like that, where people literally are like practically next to each other. I mean, I think, of course you can help with that. And then I think especially, things like that, where we talk about cleaning hands and so forth, they will help. But I don't think we can sail empty, and because that goes for everything. But once the social gatherings are accepted, then we can sail as well. That goes with everything. It's not only cruise industry, but you can help with any kind of thing. And I think also this is something that people learn. Now you see, if you're sick, you're gonna wear a mask. You wash hands much more regular than you used to. I mean, like, we already have the hand washing things in the buffet restaurants and things like that, but people don't necessarily use them all the time. Once this is over, I think they are much more mindful of that, and like, oh look, before I go to take the food, there's a device that actually cleans and sanitizes my hands. For sure, you can go and do it. It's like, yeah, I know. I mean, I always used to wash hands frequently and all that, but now I'm like crazy. I'm washing them every 2 seconds or something. So I think that kind of thing, just how we are, will have a big impact on these kind of things.
And that will carry forward for your new designs, right? So your spaces will have.
Sure. Once you have those things, and I'm sure there's going to be new items like we talked, similar to the hand wash stations and things like that. Once you design them already when you're doing the space, you can do it in a way that it doesn't look like an afterthought. It's part of the design and the layout of the space. So then it's not a disturbance, let's say. So we can integrate it, and then it's gonna be, it's gonna help in this situation, and it's still gonna be beautiful. We still care about that, and same for the materials. When they are treated or when they have antimicrobial, qualities, they don't have to be, bad looking. That's one of the things we can certainly do, and we will do.
Yeah. I think Toby, number one, to get passengers back on board ships, they've got to feel safe, and whether it's your parents going on board or whether it's you yourself going on board, you don't want to think there's a difference or a perceived difference between going on some other holiday, some other vacation, or going on a cruise. So we've got to step up to the plate as an industry and make sure that we are as safe as any other vacation that's being offered, and that's a quick way of getting the passengers back on board the ships.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think we can take clues of what's happening on land, because the restaurant industry is decimated now. I mean, what are they're doing on land to make guests feel safe to come back and go back to hotels on land, go back to restaurants on land? Looking into China, Italy, countries that are over that curve or recovering from that. I think that right now what the cruise industry is doing is we just have to observe and look for examples and adapt. So it's actually potential market for contractors. If we find in a month that the norm for people to feel comfortable in restaurants is to have social distancing and certain space dividers, that's probably something we'll have to adapt short term for cruise ships, So I think we constantly need to be observing and understanding what the guests will feel like to feel safe to go on board ships again.
And we'll probably have like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So no, you go ahead, Petu.
No, it was just a sort of related thing to what Mike said. Like now we already have sneeze guards for the guests, for these kind of reasons. But maybe you can do more when there's a service. Somebody gives you coffee, in a coffee shop or a restaurant. Maybe I have a hardware store nearby, and they have a shield in front of the person at the register. So you create that barrier that way. Maybe there will be things like that more that will prevent this.
I think another obvious one, Toby, is to upgrade the medical facilities, because that could help the cruise industry get ahead of the game, because we've already got good medical facilities. So if we can upgrade them and make people feel comfortable, then that's going to be better than a hotel, because you've got the facilities on board and you can deal with any situation. So there could be an opportunity for the cruise industry to get ahead of the game and actually be a safer vacation than
I
other
totally
options.
agree. I think we
Yeah,
we are
absolutely.
better equipped already than the land-based resorts with the
Yeah.
facilities we have and the help, you know, the USPH and what we have. I think we already are in a better position in that way. So
Yeah.
sure.
I had this other idea on my run this morning is what
You
if
should
a
go run all
contractor
the time.
created
You
these
get a lot of good ideas.
what if
Showing up.
contractors created these pop-up pods that could be that we can convert our inside cabins, since you know probably the demand for an inside cabin is not going to be that great in the next few months, but you can have these pop-up pods that could be converted related to the medical facilities if you need to isolate or something. But you know, just thinking. You don't have to be running.
Yeah, for sure.
Just keep
I mean,
thinking.
maybe you have certain number of cabins that have kind of a little bit different layout or something, so it's more ready for a conversion if needed.
That's actually brings me
Right.
to one of the questions. We jumped ahead a bit, but Matthew Jensen, I know you're watching, from Fraser Lines, mentioned adaptive spaces. So is it likely that the cruise lines will look at spaces that can be adapted for self-isolation or medical centers or whatever it might be? Is that something you guys are looking at?
For sure. Yeah, no, anything like, I mean, we have
Absolutely.
a fairly big medical or hospital, if you will, on board the ships. But, you know, if there is a time when we need more than the capacities, then this is something that could be a good option that you can do.
Mike, would you comment on that? I mean, you guys are the ones that would come in and do the work. I mean, is it something you've been involved in before?
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously been involved with all aspects of the ship, and I mean, one thing that springs to mind, Lido, and which has been popular for many years, and you think, wow, how are we going to cope with a Lido restaurant experience now? So yeah, there's a lot of adaptations that can be done there, and you know, hopefully we won't lose that style. But yeah, and coming back to the medical thing again as well, I think I mean that's paramount. I think to get that message out to passengers that it's safe.
Yeah. Cool. Well, look, we are starting to run on a bit, but the next point that we wanted to talk about was, the brighter future. And looking back at what's happened, is there anything, and take it in turns in coming up with some ideas, is there anything that you would prioritize going forward once this passes? Whether that's sustainability, whether that's sourcing suppliers in the origin, like, for example, manufacturing in your home country to support the economy, antimicrobial. What are your real priorities going to be, do you think, post-COVID? Someone?
Well, I think from the
You're
interior design, point of view, it's kind of what we already talked is to, this is something that's going to be in your mind. It's like I've always said, like, good design starts from a good plan. Yeah, I don't care how pretty the space is if it doesn't function properly, the layout doesn't work or whatever. I think this is going to be one of the sort of the main things that will be in your design is how you design it so that the cleaning and sanitizing is part of it, how it can be done easily and without disturbing guests. Like it's operational, but then it's also from a design side. So that's just going to be one of the things in your checklist, basically, like, is this well thought of and how it's realized?
And Mike?
Yeah, I would say moving forward, for sure in the immediate future, every penny is going to have to go as far as it can go. So what would be on our radar for sure is that marriage between aesthetics and functionality and maintenance. So any products or ideas or that kind of thing that's going to help a guest feel safe when they're vacationing and to have us stretch our dollars, because then we're not having to replace it all the time, would be a priority for us.
Yeah, and that sort of links in with sustainability. If you're not replacing it as often, then it's going to be more sustainable, right? If it's less manufacturing, less costs that way. So it's more of it would probably be more of an upfront cost, but you're actually replacing it less.
No, for sure. I mean, that's the thing. Like, we don't use marble, we use granite because marble is more porous. So if you spill red wine on it, it's gonna stain. And that's just something you learn, and you use the material because it works and it lasts in practical terms forever. So that's the same factor that will be with cleaning and that kind of use that you get from disinfecting things.
Yeah. Mike, what would you add?
Yeah, for me, Toby, you know, being honest, I'm just steering through this situation is filling our time at the moment. But I think we've always had a close knit community, and you guys, Toby and your team, you know, you've brought the industry, the interior industry of cruise ships together that much more, and it's been fantastic over the last couple of years. And I'm not just saying that, it's really a fact that, you know, we have the likes of Mai and Petu doing this type of thing, and it's made a massive difference. And I think once we do get through this, I just hope that there's a bigger bond with the community, that we can build on what you've actually produced in the last couple of years. And, you know, there's a bit of loyalty, and it's not all about price, it's about who's been around and looking after and supporting the cruise industry. And yeah, there's loyalty and more togetherness. And, you know, we all have a part to play, and that's whether you own the ship or you design the ship or you actually do the work. And, you know, I've always thought that everyone in our organisation has a role to play. It doesn't matter what they're doing, and hopefully we'll have more of that going forward.
That's a great answer.
Absolutely.
Well put, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Well, look, what we're going to do is we're going to do a poll now, guys. So we've still got almost 400 people on the podcast, on the webinar still. So we're going to do a poll now, which will provide some really interesting data. The question that we're going to ask you guys that are watching from home is, what is it? It is, how quickly do you think the cruise industry will recover from the coronavirus pandemic? So the answers, the possible answers are less than a year, 1 to 2 years, 3 to 5 years, or more than 5 years. So Summer, if you can hear me, please launch the poll.
Toby, can you clarify recover? Is
Yeah,
that we'll start sailing with guests again, or?
That's a good question. I think it's to get back to the situation that we're in before coronavirus is what it's referring to. So it's actually to make a full recovery back up to the health it was at in 2019. So that's the question. There we go, and there's the poll.
It was there.
It was there. Okay.
You had a millisecond. There you go.
There it is. Vote away. Right. I'm not sure what's happened there, but we will update you with the data. Some of them, I'm not sure how that. As we said, this was our first rodeo, so things were going to go wrong.
No one knows the answer, Toby.
No one knows exactly.
No, I think that's true. I mean, it's nobody does. It's the same like when will the travel ban be lifted, or you know, when can people get back to the normal? I mean, nobody knows the exact answer. It will, of course, take time. There's no doubt about that. Just from the fact that all the cruise ships are basically parked. So just ramping up and starting. If let's say if today everybody said, okay, it's gone, we have a cure, we can move on. You know, you can't even put all the cruise ships at all the ports at the same time. You know, if you want to start in one day. So that's just by nature of being such a big industry and a lot of ships, a lot of guests. That's gonna be a slow process, and it's gonna take some time. How long?
It's a global industry. I mean, we rely on ports to open up. We have no idea how long it's going to take for guests to feel comfortable to get out of their house, let alone go on vacation. So it's a big question mark. But I think, you know.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, one thing is that there's gonna be some pent up energy. Like, I've already heard from a few different places, people have been saying that I can't wait to get back cruising. Like, you know, people and saying like I've been here and I was gonna go to Keys during this time, and now I'm like, I just, once this is over, the first thing I'm going to do is going to go to Keys and take a vacation there. So I think, you know, people have the same thing. They want to go out, they want to go to restaurants, they want to go to concerts, they want to go cruising, they want to do all of that. That's just what humans are, and hopefully we get enough confidence soon, and whatever systems need to be in place, that then people can do it. And I'm sure then if your neighbor goes to a cruise and comes back and you see them coming back happy and like, holy shit, I want to go cruising too. And I think then it's going to just spread, and that will hopefully, and I think probably will kind of spread pretty quickly on everywhere. Once things start get going, then they'll really get going.
Okay, cool. Right, I'm going to head to the Q&A. Oh, Mike, go on.
Just a quickie. I've been talking to clients, obviously, around, and bookings are up with in the UK for next year, and I believe they are in Australia as well. So bookings are up on last year at the same time. So which is fantastic, positive news. So hopefully we'll be bouncing back, you know, sooner rather than later.
The media do have a part to play in all the reporting they do, right? I mean, that does, you know, you see in the news. I saw that Cruise Critic, which we all know, they done a really good poll, and their audience are people that go on cruises, and I can't remember the exact stats, but we'll post them into the blog that we do off the back of this. And it was amazing, like the actual confidence that people still have in cruising that were, you know, avid cruise fans. So okay, guys, so I'm going to head to the Q&A. I'll credit so first up we have Derek Barkus from YSA, good friend of ours. Will the situation affect the way people cruise, e.g. closer to home or river cruise demand? So what do we think about how that will affect the way people want to cruise?
I guess it could be in a way that not flying, just like what happened after 9/11, there was a lot of people didn't want to fly, and cruising actually then, you know, was good for that. Like we have ships within 3 or 4 driving distance, 3 or 4 hour driving distance from any port. So I mean that might be, I don't know about river cruising, like I don't know how that would be any different from cruising in the ocean. But it might be that there's going to be more demand to have, you know, ports where you don't have to fly into. I could see that maybe that's a factor.
Yeah, I think smaller ships.
I could also see a shorter.
Less people.
Yeah, I could also see in the short term a higher demand for just shorter vacations, just by the nature of the economy. People still want to go on vacation. They just might not be able to go for a 2-week, 15-day, 20-day cruise. So it would be brands, it would be wise to look into shorter cruises to try to expand your clientele and what the demand would be. Yeah,
for sure. I agree. I think that's going to be something that it's more comfortable to go on a 3-day cruise than a 7-day or 10-day cruise, probably. I mean, at least to kind of test the waters, if you will, somebody.
Mike?
And Toby, I think you touched on it. I think smaller ships could be more popular as well. And I know they don't produce the financial results that some cruise lines want, but you know, I personally I would go smaller cruise. Less people.
So the next question is from Luis Rincon from Zala Systems, which is, I think this is probably the most asked question, which quite right. How do you think the refurbishment projects scheduled for 2020 will be impacted, cancelled or scaled down? I mean, it's a really tough question, I get that, but does anyone want to have a go at that?
Well, 2020, that's where we are now, and we are now almost in the end of April. I mean, that's just anybody who's in the industry, you know, when you start calculating the time to prepare and all of that, it's not going to be overnight thing that happens. So it might be tough to, I guess in this year, it still could be at the end of the year, but that's something that when we were talking about before was to be ready, because nobody knows when this travel ban and all of these things that, you know, are guided from the governments are lifted. So it's out of our hands. But once that happens, then obviously everybody wants to get planning and going and doing as soon as possible. Then if suppliers are ready to go, that's the key. So then we can do and start the dry docks really quickly and get them going.
Mai, did you want to add to that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the longer that we have a no sale order, I mean, we just do the math, right? If your brands are not creating any revenue in 2020, then the thought of having enough cash to do the type of scale that we had in 19 is just not realistic. I think that it could be a couple of different scenarios. It could be that certain brands would choose to focus on a handful of ships and they put all of their resources into that. And so maybe the scope would be similar, but for less ships. It could be that they're spreading it across in smaller scales across other ships. You just don't know. I think the big question mark is how long are we going to go without sailing? And how long will it take for guests to start sailing again for us to create revenue, for that to have that ripple effect of dry dock time, dry dock scope, you know, everything on the run work.
Mike?
Yeah, Toby, I think realistically, I think we can forget this year to a certain extent. And I think I'm hearing from clients that next year is going to be generally remedial works through 21. And I think that we could be lucky with some refits. Generally, the season starts sort of September, October. Hopefully, we can get some projects going in the autumn or fall in 21. But I think 22, I think it could be very interesting. I think it could rev up quite nicely because, I mean, I think we've proved it enough times that we've got short memories for these things. And, you know, we've got to live life. Viva la vida, as they say. And hopefully
no, it's absolutely true. I mean, I think in this case, you know, people forget things quickly and you know, then they're just, and I think the living of the life is a very good point. A lot of people are like, look, I'm not gonna work, you know, stay for home forever. I mean, no matter what, I'm gonna go. That's just human nature, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, same with trade.
I think also having a vaccine, the quicker that we can find a vaccine, that will really affect the timing.
That's going to be the game changer. Yeah, if there's a vaccine or this is nothing, then we can. That would be like a light switch. Then we would be like, okay, take a pill, everybody, and then we can get going. I hope that happens soon. I'm sure it happens. I don't know when it happens, but hopefully it happens soon because that's going to change things big time.
Yeah. So the next question we have touched on, but I want to just mention it. So it's from Celeste Ramsey from Trevira, and I'll paraphrase slightly. Are you seeing an increase in companies that can supply antimicrobial, antibacterial, and anti-germ offerings? If they're textiles, furnishings, fabric suppliers, they're able to supply technology in this area? Is this now a priority? Are you seeing the companies come through and reach out to you?
I got an email today for a material that's antimicrobial. I've seen that before, but you know, it just came again. It was a good time for sure. I mean, I'm sure whenever the next cruise expo is, you're gonna have a lot of requests for people selling, you know, cleaning products, materials that are antimicrobial and things like that. You probably should have a seminar or something to talk about that stuff like that. No doubt they're gonna be coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's September 2nd and 3rd in Miami and December 2nd and 3rd in London, just for the record. But I think we should be doing more about that throughout the year. You know, we should be doing webinars and seminars online next week, in the next month or so, just because it's such a burning topic. We've got, I would say, a disproportionate amount of our exhibitors are the fabrics, the textiles companies, and that's what they want to. That's what they want to know about. They want to know how they can get involved, or if they're already involved, how they can get specified. So definitely a good point there.
Well, Toby, just a quickie on that. Most of these guys are producing fabrics and carpets for the healthcare industry. Now, you know, they're already a long way down the road, so I'm sure they can get the designers, as Mai and Petu would want the designers to get their heads together and start designing something that's a little bit more cruise rather than healthcare, because I think we've all got a perception of what healthcare looks like, but they have the properties. So, you know, there's a real gap there.
And that's something that both sides can benefit. Maybe we get more beautiful looking hospital beds in hospitals, something. Definitely that kind of things, you know, those will happen more and more for sure.
And on the subject then of,
Yeah.
style and design, Christian from Brand Milano has asked, in terms of style post COVID-19, will you see a change in the design, colors, design of furniture, patterns on fabrics to communicate a more positive feeling, or will it be more of a rigorous style?
I think design is relative, but my personal feeling is there's going to be more of an emphasis on wellness and health, and however that translates to design will definitely influence the interiors.
But yeah, style-wise, if you look at the, Bauhaus, Scandinavian design, or something that's, very simple, less is more, maybe people are drawn more into that than something that's very heavy on colors and things. I don't know. Definitely, if you see something that's white and things like that, it kind of makes you think that it's more clean. So there could be something.
Okay.
And also space. I mean, lightness and space and
sure.
Wellness and nature. I mean, that all relates to design. And actually, now I feel like design is more important than ever because people are so aware of their personal environments and their personal space. So,
and I mean, we have the salty air. We have the salty air on the outdoors, which is good for anybody with respiratory problems. So that you can just go out on a deck and watch the ocean and breathe.
Sounds good. So the next question is from our senior exhibitions manager, Ben Perry, which I'm sure you all know. He's asked if all these ships are docked up, not in use, and demand is lower to begin with, is there an argument to get the outfitters and get the suppliers doing some of that essential refurbishment work before they're in operation, as opposed to waiting for them to be needed and just have them ready?
Well, I would love to answer
Absolutely.
that with a big yeah.
As long as there's cash.
Great question, Ben. I love it.
Question. Great question.
Mike just had a huge smile on his face.
No, but it might be that if you have a certain number of fleet, and you're not gonna just put them all in service. Maybe right in the beginning you start with 10%, 50%, whatever the percent it is. Then you might have a couple of ships and you place them in a location. If you can do some work, it was like a riding team type of work, but maybe it's done on port or whatever, before it goes to service. And that can be quick. You can do a lot of things Mike's team can do in a week on a ship. So I mean, that's definitely something to look at.
Yeah.
But I would circle back also on the idea of cash flow and efficiency. I mean, if contractors can think of things where we would only have to pay for 3 days of labor versus 6 days, even if a ship is in layup, I mean, now's the time. Please start thinking about these things because there will for sure be a demand. It's just a matter of how much cash and how far it can go. That's just the reality of not having any revenue for months.
You're breaking up, Mike. You're breaking up. I can't hear.
Oh, no.
Point taken.
We've actually answered most of the questions just throughout the webinar. So, I mean, is there anything else you guys want to add to this? We've overran quite a lot, and I know that people it's late where some people are and early where others are. So, is there anything you guys want to add?
Well, I think one of the things when we were talking just before was that what positive or is there positive we can take from this, and I think there is, and there should be. I mean, anytime you're in a situation, you should learn, and I mean, if you learn, then that's positive. And I think this has already shown, like when you see like in New York City, they clap their hands at 7 p.m. for the health workers and those kind of people. I think if us humans, we're washing hands more, we're more careful if we're sick. I think, I hope that will continue after things get, let's call, normal. Anything like that, how you feel your co-workers, how you feel the people, health workers or other people like that. I hope that doesn't go away and and that we forget that.
I would say keep the spirits up. I mean, one or two of us have been around once or twice, and we had disaster recession in the 90s. We had 9/11, and each time we thought the sky was falling in. But you know, we're resilient. There's a lot of good people in this industry, and it's a great industry, and we will come back. This is unprecedented. We've heard that overplayed too many times, that word, but we will bounce back and we will be there. And as long as we support each other through it, we will get through it. And this has been simply lovely doing this. And hopefully we'll see you all on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely.
We will.
Did you add anything before?
Yeah, sure. Just in closing, first of all, Toby, I want to say thank you so much to you and your team for connecting our community. You have a huge part in inspiring us all, and thank you for that. And I would say, you know, time heals all things, and there's always light at the end of a tunnel, even if it's a long tunnel. There are things that we can do that don't cost any money that make a huge impact. We can be supportive. We can reach out to people. We can share ideas, have empathy, and do our part. And with the gift of time, share what we know, share our knowledge, because those are the things that keep creative and inspired. And design, more than ever, is one of the most important aspects to adapt to this post-COVID crisis. So thank you for all of you that are listening, and for sure, we'll be there at the other side.
Yeah, thank you from me as well to Toby, and yeah, everybody who's listening. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, thanks to our team. I had no part in the promotion of this. So Summer, Elliot, Ellie, all you guys, thank you so much for making this happen. We are going to be doing this. We're going to do a webinar like this every 2 weeks, and then in between we're going to do a sort of short 15-minute interview with someone. The next subject of our webinar will be Petra Ryberg. So Petra, I know you'll be watching the recorded version of this. We'll be doing a 15-minute interview with you next week. So we'll send out the invitation if you want to ask any questions. If not, thank you for viewing, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
Thank you. All the best, everyone.